Good morning, and welcome to the Chesapeake Foodshed Network's inaugural virtual Coffee Talk series, Learning and Connecting for Action. We are so glad that you could join us this morning. We've had a wonderful turnout in terms of registrations, and just thrilled to have you today. My name is Christy Gabbard, and I'm the owner of Local Concepts, a consulting firm which provides the organizational development and coordination support, or the backbone support, for the Chesapeake Foodshed Network. Before jumping into the coffee talk, I wanted to give you a brief overview of the Chesapeake Foodshed Network. And essentially, the Chesapeake Foodshed Network is a group of organizations, businesses, funders, and agencies, and other change agents that are working across the watershed to build a stronger and more resilient food system. We are a newly formed group. The leadership group that spurred the network's development did so because they recognize that there's a great deal of work being done already across the watershed to advance our food system, but that there could be more communication among all of us that are doing work. And if we could be in better communication with one another, that we may be able to catalyze or to accelerate change in our food system by catalyzing connections and collaborations. So what you're looking at is essentially a picture of our foundation building blocks, our network building blocks. And the bottom of our building blocks, you'll see what gives us our strength really are our connections. And in building trust and sharing knowledge and getting to know one another and being very intentional about that, we anticipate that we will see opportunity for alignment, and then we can work collectively towards some action. So what are the coffee talks? Basically, these are a platform that we've put together to help catalyze connections around different food system issues, around different food system topics. And the idea is that for each one of these coffee talks, they're 45-minute webinars, we work with a resource expert who is very passionate about and knowledgeable about a food system issue. And then after the webinar, after the learning opportunity, which is really a quick and dirty learning opportunity through the webinar, we will announce some next steps so that you, the viewers, will have a way to be engaged with the resource expert and others doing similar work around the food system. So today's talk is navigating SNAP and matching programs in farmers markets, success and challenges in accepting federal nutrition benefits. And our co-host today is Ann Palmer with the Johns Hopkins Center for a Livable Future. Our resource expert is Amy Crone, and she is the executive director and founder of the Maryland Farmers Market Association. She's also the project manager for MarketLink, which is a national initiative sponsored by USDA to increase acceptance of SNAP at farmers markets. Joining us are Lauren Shweder Biel with DC Greens. Lauren is the executive director and co-founder of DC Greens, a nonprofit that uses the power of partnerships to support food education, food access, and food policy in the nation's capital. And we're also joined by Leah Johnson with Wholesome Wave, where she serves as the manager for the National Nutrition Incentive Network, which provides support to incentive program operators. So thrilled to have this lineup for you this morning. Quick overview of our co-host's mission and some of the work that the Johns Hopkins Center for a Livable Future is doing. As I mentioned, Ann Palmer is joining us today from the Center for a Livable Future. She's also the chair of the policy work group for the Chesapeake Foodshed Network. And she serves at the Center for a Livable Future as the Food Communities and Public Health Program Director, where she directs the Food Policy Networks project. And at the bottom of this slide, you can see all of the many resources that are developed through that project and in an effort to help reform the food systems and provide support to food policy councils through effective public policy. So this is our agenda today, and we're going to start off with Amy, who will provide an overview of the SNAP benefits, and then move into the information about policy implications at the national level from Leah, and then Lauren's going to talk with us about some success she's had in affecting budget and through policy in DC. We'll follow that with some questions and answers, and I encourage you all to type in your questions in the question box, which is an option in your control panel. And Anne's going to be moderating those questions, and we'll field our presenters will join us via video and phone at the end of the presentations to answer your questions. Also wanted to mention that there are a few handouts from Wholesome Wave and also a more detailed description of the biographies and contact information included in the handout option, which is also found in your control panel. So with that, I will turn it over to Amy. And okay.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Sound great.
Great. I hope everyone's doing well this morning. And here we go. We can hopefully see my screen now. All right. So thank you again for joining. Christy, thank you for hosting, and Anne as well. We're excited to have this opportunity to provide a forum for folks to discuss SNAP at farmers markets. So I'm going to kick everything off by doing an overview of kind of how we got to where we are and where we are now. So if you have questions, as Christy mentioned, please feel free to put them in the little chat or question area on the side of your screen. And even if we don't get to them as we go through our presentations, we'll be able to respond at the end, either during the Q&A or we'll follow up with you after the webinar. So as Christy mentioned, I wear two hats with regards to SNAP and farmers markets. I am the founder and executive director of the Maryland Farmers Market Association. We're a nonprofit that helps farmers markets throughout the state of Maryland navigate these different levels of challenges that one may find when operating a successful farmers market. So we help all spectrums of the stakeholders involved in farmers markets, from farmers interested in selling at markets to the market managers interested in operating the best market they can, to consumers perhaps looking to better understand how to cook what they can find at the farmers market. And then my other hat is as the project manager for the national program MarketLink. That is a program that was developed in conjunction with USDA to expand the acceptance of SNAP at farmers markets nationwide. There's the links to both of those organizations there on the bottom, and if you have additional questions, I'm happy to answer those about those two initiatives or projects. Let's see. So just a very quick overview of SNAP and farmers markets. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is what the acronym SNAP stands for, was originally started in 1940, and it started out as a paper coupon. So this program was piloted in 1960, and the paper coupon system was in place throughout the country for 20 years before it switched to an electronic format. So in 1980, the program was switched from paper checks over to an electronic benefit transfer card, which is why you'll often hear the term EBT used in conjunction or interchangeably with the term SNAP. That's simply the means by which the benefits are transferred from USDA to the participants. It is a program based on income, so that is the qualification for participants to qualify, and they have to go to their local offices in order to sign up for benefits. The benefits are then issued on the card that they're given for the program, and that card is known by different names in different states. As you can see, in Maryland, it's called the Independence Card, and so in Maryland, the benefits are issued between currently the 6th and the 15th of the month. So participants have those benefits to spend at the various outlets, which are approved, authorized vendors by USDA. So on the vendor side, a store or a farmer's market or a direct marketing farmer has to also apply with USDA to be an authorized retailer. The reason for that is simply that there's an electronic transfer happening from USDA's bank account to the retailer's bank account, so USDA wants to ensure that that person has been vetted and that they have the appropriate information in order to approve them as a SNAP authorized retailer. So farmers markets are an option for where folks can spend their SNAP. So with the switch from paper checks to electronic benefits, the redemption of SNAP at farmers markets dropped significantly. So in the past 10 to 15 years, there's been a lot of work done to try and get that redemption level back up in order to increase the acceptance of SNAP at farmers markets. The challenge of the technology and having a means to accept electronic cards was one of the major hurdles, and a lot has happened in this field in the past several years in order to make it easier for farmers markets to be places for folks to utilize their SNAP. So there's two ways that SNAP can work at a farmers market currently. The first on the left is what many of you are likely familiar with. It's a central market system in which usually there's one station where a person can swipe their EBT card and get tokens in exchange for that, which they then spend with the vendors who sell SNAP eligible items. SNAP eligible foods, just to clarify, is anything that is not hot or prepared foods intended to be eaten on site. And of course, it does not include anything such as alcohol or tobacco. So virtually, in most farmers markets, 95% of the products on sale should be SNAP eligible foods. Of course, that excludes the vendors that are selling things to eat on site, as well as those hot foods that I mentioned. So to go back to how it would work at market, in that central market system, a participant would go to the central tent, swipe their EBT card, and get tokens in exchange to spend with the vendors with SNAP eligible foods. In a farmer-based system, the farmer can accept the SNAP card directly at their stand. So this is the major move forward with regards to the MarketLink program, is that more and more farmers are actually obtaining equipment on their own to be able to accept SNAP directly. Previously, getting the equipment was a large hurdle, and then setting up the processor in order to be able to accept those payments via that equipment was also a challenge. So this is just a summary. This is from the Farmers Market Coalition. It's a graph showing how much spending has been going to farmers markets in terms of SNAP over the past several years. And just for a point of reference, the SNAP program nationwide is actually $86.5 billion, that's with a B, dollars every year throughout the country. So as you can see, although there is significant growth in the farmers market arena, there's still a very tiny fraction of the overall SNAP funds that are being spent at farmers markets. And there's obviously a huge room for improvement. So this is another graph from the Farmers Market Coalition, which very clearly indicates that there's a lot of room for growth in terms of ensuring that more farmers markets accept SNAP. And ultimately, the reason for accepting SNAP at a farmers market is to ensure that all members of a given community have access to the best, freshest, and healthiest food. So the USDA is the agency that administers SNAP and has been implementing various programs to help farmers markets accept SNAP in the past several years. Prior to 2012, USDA actually provided free equipment to brick and mortar stores in order to accept SNAP when they became an authorized retailer. That has since changed, but at the time, there was a period of time in which a brick and mortar store, so any place that had an electric connection and a phone line, would receive free equipment. And however, farmers markets or other places where wireless equipment was needed was not subsidized in the same way. USDA recognized this gap, and in 2012 they provided $4 million in funding to get wireless equipment for authorized retailers, and in particular for farmers markets. That funding was issued through the state departments that issue SNAP, and in some cases that didn't work very well. In some cases, the states actually refused the funding because they couldn't find a way through their procurement channels to effect that program at any type of effective means. So nationwide, less than 25% of that original FY12 funding was spent through the states, and USDA recognized that that perhaps wasn't the best way to go. So they had an additional $4 million in fiscal year 2013, And they wisely decided not to do the same unsuccessful route as before, putting the monies through state agencies, but rather put a contract out to bid. So the National Association of Farmers Market Nutrition Programs, the acronym that you see there, NAFMP, was the contractor that won that bid. And so the program that we're able to develop is called MarketLink. The reason why we've called it MarketLink is that while the funding is very specific to new farmers markets and direct marketing farmers, we wanted to provide a platform through which any farmers market vendor or farmers market could obtain a. Even if you are not able to qualify for USDA's free equipment, you can also purchase equipment, or we have a variety of different options to help continue to expand the expense of SNAP at farmers market, or in many cases also improve the SNAP experience at farmers markets. Some farmers markets have been accepting SNAP since it transitioned to electronic benefits, and so there's a lot of outdated equipment out there, which is why USDA also recognized this, and in FY 2014 they issued funding for replacement equipment as well. So over the years, it's been really amazing to see how we have kind of covered the full spectrum of the potential need for farmers and farmers markets to accept SNAP. So now we're continuing to work to improve the numbers of folks that are accepting SNAP and minimize those challenges that come up with getting all set up and ready to accept SNAP electronically. And overall, as you can see at the top, USDA has provided $8.7 million for EBT equipment and support at farmers markets throughout the country. So a brief slide about MarketLink and what it is. As I mentioned, it was based on the FY13 funding that came from USDA. And essentially, MarketLink provides free equipment. It's either an iPhone or an iPad, or if you decide to use your own device, you can get a card reader and a printer. And it also comes with a contract for processing. So previously, one of the big challenges was for farmers markets and farmers to figure out how to not only get the equipment itself, but also set up the right processing agreement so that those electronic channels could be opened between the USDA bank account and their bank account. So MarketLink has rolled that all into one package to hopefully simplify those connections for farmers and farmers markets. So it started, the contract was awarded in October of 2013, and we were able to get the first equipment shipped by March of 2014 after getting all of the pieces of the program set up. And since then, you can see some of the numbers here. There are more than 2,000 farmers and markets that have received MarketLink equipment. We have equipment in 48 states. And there has been, at this point, actually, that top number is from 2014. We're now over $1 million in SNAP sales through MarketLink equipment. So it really is a program that has moved the needle in terms of SNAP sales accepted at farmers markets nationwide. The other piece of MarketLink is the technical assistance aspect. So we have helped farmers markets and direct marketing farmers become SNAP authorized. We've also worked with USDA to simplify their online application so that it makes more sense for these retailers who are not necessarily brick and mortar. So some of the challenges that we'll probably talk about a little bit later, but overall, just so to frame the conversation, it's challenges of accepting SNAP at the farmers market. Some of these I've alluded to before. The issue of technology, obtaining that wireless equipment, making sure all of the pieces are in place for you to accept those electronic payments. The learning curve of how all of those pieces fit together and how to troubleshoot should any issues arrive. The potential administrative burden is a large piece, which I know that Leah will talk about some of the national developments to help alleviate the challenge to run a token system, have all of the other administration of the central market system in which who has to deal with the token, the accounting, the materials, and all of those pieces to accept SNAP. And then lastly, the regulatory requirements. So as you saw, those 3 different pots of funding from USDA had different requirements and different restrictions on them, so that can be confusing to navigate for farmers and markets to determine which they could potentially take advantage of. And then also the SNAP authorization process itself, as I mentioned, can be quite arduous in terms of making sure that you have all the information that USDA needs in order to approve you as a vendor. So that is a very quick overview of all of the current state of SNAP at farmers markets. And I believe I will turn it over next or back to Kristen.
Yeah, whoops. We'll go ahead and turn it over to Leah.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody, and thanks for having me. And Amy really set it up perfectly to kind of go into looking at this farmers markets, nutrition incentive programs, which I'll talk a bit more about at the national level. And so, all right, we can get started. So really briefly, just wanted to give a little bit of background on Wholesome Wave, where I'm from. Wholesome Wave is a national nonprofit focused on affordable, healthy, local food for all. And all of our work is designed to really fit within these 4 key focus areas, which include increasing affordable access to healthy local food for consumers, generating revenue for small and mid-sized farms, bolstering local and regional economies, and improving health outcomes. So there are, as was mentioned at the beginning, 2 handouts that are available on the side panel, which are available so that you can find out more about the work that we're doing and about our programs, and also feel free to reach out to me with any questions that can't get answered on the webinar today. Great. So really briefly, I'm sure many folks are familiar with nutrition incentive programs, but I just wanted to give kind of a quick overview of how these typically work as a bit of background. Essentially, these are programs that run and offer a match for federal benefits, such as EBT or SNAP, when spent on healthy, often locally grown food, most often at farmers markets, but increasingly at CSAs, mobile markets, farm stands, and even grocery stores and bodegas. The way that this typically works is a customer will go to the market booth, as Amy mentioned. They might spend $10 in EBT and receive an additional $10 or some other match amount to spend on other products at the market. Oftentimes, those are geared toward fruits and vegetables. These programs have really proliferated over the past 7 to 8 years or so and have been proven to increase consumption of fruits and vegetables among participants while simultaneously increasing revenue for farmers that are participating at the markets at which they're being offered. Historically, incentive programs have been funded by private foundations, individuals, corporate sponsors, but increasingly so, we're seeing that there's support at the local and state level and also federal level, which I'll talk a bit more about in a few moments. So Wholesome Wave facilitates a national network of nutrition incentive program operators across the country. Currently in 33 states and DC, we're working with more than 490 direct-to-consumer markets and have 70 organizations that are part of this network that are operating programs, in addition to many other initiatives that they might be focused on. So we work to build the capacity of network members to deliver impactful nutrition incentive programs that benefit their customers, farmers, and communities. Our network members participate in a community of innovation and learning, sharing best practices. They also have their impact aggregated as part of a national data set that Wholesome Wave manages. And they also serve as policy advocates in their regions. So we help to facilitate this network, also bring folks together on an annual basis for a conference, which will be happening in January of 2016. But we've seen incredible growth in these programs over the past few years, which is incredibly exciting. And the data collection and evaluation is really at the core of our work, as we believe that in order to have any lasting policy change at the federal level, we have to have the evidence to show that these programs work and do what they're intended to do in benefiting consumers and small and mid-sized farmers. The breadth of the network has also allowed us to gather information widely to inform policy at the national level. And really briefly, 2 examples of this are in 2014, we worked with our network to submit comments on the new IRS ruling that was finalized in January of 2015, directing nonprofit hospitals that they can use a portion of their community benefit funding to address adequate nutrition in their communities among community members. And in some states, this pot of funding has been allocated to local nutrition incentive programs. So hospitals are beginning to really invest in prevention and addressing nutrition needs among community members. Additionally, more recently, we've been working with USDA FNS, Food and Nutrition Service, on identifying the challenges around EBT at farmers markets, as Amy was talking about. So we're working with other national groups to collect experiences from the field and provide some recommendations back to USDA. Can't have this presentation without really quickly talking about this exciting development that has happened over the past year or so. The 2014 Farm Bill was passed in February of 2014 and included $100 million for the Food Insecurity Nutrition Incentive Program. So this is funding over the 5 years of the Farm Bill, and it is intended to fund incentives for the purchase of fruits and vegetables by SNAP consumers. The request for applications, the first one occurred back in November of 2014, or in the fall of 2014, with applications due in December. And this past April, USDA awarded projects in 26 states with $31.5 million to run these programs. And we expect the next request for applications this fall of 2015. But this is a really important milestone for these programs in having federal funding available to support them. Important to note that it does require a one-to-one match among applicants, but still it's an incredible opportunity for these programs to have additional funding to run and a source that's more sustainable than has existed in the past. So our goal is to ensure, Wholesome Wave's goal is to ensure that this funding remains secure, and much of our current funded project is geared toward evaluation and really trying to pinpoint how these programs can be most effective and reach their goals in an efficient way. So quickly, in tandem with the amazing progress that has been made at the federal level, we're really seeing that state support and state policy is critical towards supporting this work. And a number of states and municipalities have already gotten on board and decided to support nutrition incentive programs in their region, DC being a great example, Chicago, New Mexico. More and more are beginning to realize that state investment in these programs will help bring more federal funding to their programs. And so additionally, in order for groups to apply for the federal FINI funds, written support from state SNAP agencies is a critical piece of that. So we're seeing state SNAP agencies get involved, departments of ag taking on a larger role in supporting these programs, which is really exciting. And Wholesome Wave is working to develop ways to support state policy around nutrition incentives, including mapping best practices and existing legislation nationally, seeing what is happening in states across the country, and developing tools to support groups to take action on the state level. If anyone has ideas or knows of initiatives going on in your regions, please get in touch with us, as we're currently doing this cataloging and mapping. But it would be great to get the thoughts from folks in the audience as well. So that's just a quick overview, and I am happy to answer questions later on as well, but for now we'll turn it over to Laura and Biel from DC Greens.
Great. Can everybody hear me? Or can someone hear me at least? Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'm Lauren Shweder Biel. I'm Executive Director of DC Greens. As Christy mentioned, DC Greens uses the power of partnerships to support food education, food access, and food policy in the nation's capital. Christy is going to be scrolling through some images from the DC program as I talk. They're not specifically, you know, they are what I am talking about, but it's not a PowerPoint. It really is more of a slideshow. But we've had some really exciting developments in DC, and I'm really here to tell you about the program that we're running and also how we've gotten to where we are. So in DC currently, the city has, for the past now 3 years, put funding into the city budget to support nutrition incentives at farmers markets. For FY16, there is $450,000 in the budget for a program that the city is calling Produce Plus. This program works a little differently than some of the other incentive programs across the country in that it actually is not a matching program. It is a program where anybody who is on Medicaid or receives SNAP or WIC or TANF, any federal benefit, can come to any of the 50 farmers markets in the city and can automatically get $10 in checks to spend on fruits and vegetables every single week. You know, it's a very exciting program, as you can see from these pictures. We're seeing this season, we've got lines really around the block. The thing that's on the screen now is a very small market in Ward 7. This is in Columbia Heights, but we've got 100 people lined up to receive Produce Plus checks, and half an hour before markets even open. So we're seeing an incredible demand for this program, and it's very exciting. But what I want to emphasize is that this has been a very long process to get the city on board, to get things in place for this program. And it really started probably about 7 or 8 years ago when DC Hunger Solutions, which is another nonprofit, sort of did a study identifying the sort of difficulties that many DC residents were having accessing and affording healthy produce or healthy foods. And they convened the DC Farmers Market Collaborative. So they basically brought together all of the people that at that time were running farmers markets to talk about how can we try and make farmers markets, accessible points for food access in this kind of way. And so what happened is that, through these conversations with all of the people that were running farmers markets, it became clear that there were some markets that were running matching programs, which was sort of, taking off across the country at that point. We're now talking about probably 6 years ago. And some weren't. And, the ones that were able to run matching programs were really the ones that were run by kind of powerful nonprofits that were able to do fundraising to support these matching programs because, they're expensive. And the more successful they are, the more money you have to raise for them. But there were a lot of farmers markets in the city that were smaller, community-based. Some of them were for-profit, but were located in areas with, high-density, low-income customers. And there was a real desire for everybody to be able to offer some kind of a matching program. And so from that collaborative, myself and a couple of other people started to go and talk to our city council about, hey, listen, we've got this program. We've got, incredible interest in these matching programs that are, proving across the country to be able to, impact health. And something that's so valuable to the city really shouldn't rest on the back of, 2 executive directors. And that this is really something that the city should get involved in. So, there were many conversations and, first it really didn't go anywhere. And then, one of our council members, Mary Che, in 2013 sort of put a little bit of her, $50,000 of her kind of budget, in DC, each of our council members gets to, decide where their money goes. So, we sort of convinced her. She had been a huge advocate for healthy food in schools, and she's been a real champion of healthy food access and healthy food education. So she put $50,000 into the budget, which in DC at least, that goes to the Department of Health. So the Department of Health, got this money, and because of the way that the government procurement processes work, it was very hard for them to get that money sort of out the door in time. But, they did, and it was sort of done as a coupon. It was almost done like just handing out additional WIC checks, which wasn't really the intention. We had all really wanted it to be a matching program at market, which was proving to be, so successful across the country. So in the following year, it was actually an election year in DC, and quite a number of council members were running for mayor. And it was a very good moment to go with all of the, again, with this collaborative group, really, with the data that we had about how successful these programs were, go and say, this is something that can be a city-wide initiative that helps people. And a number of council members got interested in it. They wanted to, you know, step up and really show that they were concerned with, you know, the health of the entire district. And so in that year, we got $200,000 to spend. That money again went to the Department of Health. And what I want to emphasize in all of this is that, you know, I think as advocates, we think, oh, you know, we got the money into the budget, it's done, you know, we succeeded. But what I've really been learning through this process is that is really just the beginning, and that it's our responsibility as people who are advocating for this funding to make sure that we are kind of shepherding those funds through so that they actually are effective and being used in the ways that they were intended. So I'm actually, I have to wrap up my presentation, but I want to stick with that point for a second. I mean, what's happened over the past, I guess now 2 years, is that, you know, DC Greens has been working together with the Department of Health and, you know, as a conduit to the DC Farmers Market Collaborative to really make sure that these programs are being run smoothly, you know, that there's outreach being done, that, you know, last year there was a real press of people coming to the markets, and the markets were so grateful to have this additional revenue stream, but they really just didn't have the capacity to process everybody who was coming to market. And so this year, DC Greens launched something called the Farmers Market Brigade, where we've got 270 volunteers from across the city that are coming, that we train, who are out, you know, making sure that the checks are being, you know, handed out smoothly, that people in line are being engaged, that the lines are moving quickly. And it's really, again, it's sort of every season of this, we're kind of transforming what it looks like. And I also really want to emphasize that the data collection piece has been critical. You know, when the money went to the Department of Health, there was really no additional funding for their staff time for them to, you know, be able to actually do any kind of data analysis, which is not their fault. That's how often these things go. The money was earmarked for a particular purpose, and it kind of landed on people who work very hard and are running a lot of different programs. And so we sort of offered our services to the Department of Health and said, let us do the data analysis here so that we really know what's happening. And it's with that analysis that we were able to go back to City Council in the following year and talk about, you know, that this is something that really needs additional funding. I can answer, I do have to wrap up in terms of time, but you know, as we're developing things, there's legislation that is now coming through our council to help make the process easier so that, you know, the funding can cross fiscal years. I mean, as all of us are engaged in this work, keeping our eyes open, identifying where the problems are coming up, and then working together with our government agencies, working together with our city council members to really identify where we can make changes, both in terms of policy and in terms of logistics and in terms of funding to keep these programs moving forward. And I'll end there for now, but please do ask questions if you have them.
Thank you so much, Lauren, Leah, and Amy. Appreciate all the information that you've shared. And we've been collecting questions. We invite you to submit questions if you have them using the control panel. Go to webinar control panel, the question feature. And Anne is going to, we'll ask Amy and Leah if you could join us by video, and then Lauren's going to join us by phone, and Anne, as I mentioned, will go ahead and share the questions with our presenters, and you all feel free to go ahead and continue to submit them, and we will take some time to answer them.
So the first question we have is, with the switch from central market system to farmer-based SNAP, isn't it harder to collect data on SNAP sales?
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. So I'll take that question. It can be for sure, but there's a lot of different ways that that information can be collected. And in some ways, if the farmers have the equipment, the reporting is actually more accurate because the farmers can simply email or even text a report of all their transactions to whomever needs that data. So the transactions are all captured and can be in Excel form, for example, and then the market manager can simply use that information and include it in all of their summary data.
Thanks, Amy.
Mm-hmm.
The next question, this is for you, Leah. Is Wholesome Wave funded through the 2014 Farm Bill?
We are, yes. We got awarded, we put in, there are 3 tiers within the FINI award process, and so Wholesome Wave submitted an application for the 3rd tier, and so we have a project going now involving 31 organizations in 17 states and DC. So it's a 3-year project. We're really excited about it, and if anyone wants more details about what's included in that or what we're working on, I'm happy to talk about that too. But a key part of it is we're doing some really cool evaluation work, including a randomized control trial on nutrition incentive programs nationally.
Thanks, Leah.
Yeah.
And then the next question is, who funds the Produce Plus checks?
So the Produce Plus checks are actually funded by the city. And, so every year we are going and, bringing people to testify about how valuable this program has been. But the DC city government is funding the Produce Plus checks. The legislation that is coming through currently actually sets up a separate fund that will allow monies to cross over fiscal years, and we're also hopeful that it will allow external agencies or external funders to be able to contribute additionally to the Produce Plus pot, because there's a lot of people that want to help fund this, but since it's funded through the government, it is difficult for people to fund the government directly.
Thanks, Lauren. Next one. Are there tools and resources for creating promotional items to advertise double-dollar programs or SNAP acceptance, posters, social media ads, etc.?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah. Lauren, why don't you start?
Well, I think that different places have developed different kinds of materials, and Wholesome Wave is a really great sort of repository of a lot of different examples across the country. One thing that DC Greens has done in DC is tried to sort of unify all of the different market information, because what's happened is that different farmers markets, they're out trying to promote their program. From the customer perspective, it was getting very confusing. People were getting sent to all different markets, and so what DC Greens has done, since we don't have a proprietary interest in any individual market, we've developed a map and also kind of a brochure guide that just lists every market, and have an outreach specialist that's getting them out to service providers and WIC clinics and churches and really all over any community health fairs. And I think that's been a really successful thing in DC, just to, again, unify all of the places that people can use and can receive benefits. But other people might want to jump in on that as well.
I would add to that as well and say we've done the same in Maryland. So the Maryland Farmers Market Association has tried to compile all of that information and streamline it so that it's clear for folks where they can use which benefits and where they can find matching programs or other incentives for the farmers market. So that, and then to take it the step further, just as Lauren said, also to share that with the different partners, so outreach to the benefits offices, other community groups that might want to share that information with their membership, things like that.
I just want to note too, I accidentally deleted somebody's question, so please go back and add it if you need to. I didn't know what I was doing when I did that. So next question. In addition to collecting data on usage and dollars, do any of you have a sense for how these programs have impacted the health of the participants? For example, do you know if folks have increased fruit and vegetable consumption or have seen improvements in health?
Leah, do you want to share with the
So Wholesome Wave has done quite a bit of research over the past few years on customer impact and health. And so on the resources page of our website, we have some of the research that's been done. Partners across the country of ours have done consumer surveys asking about health increase or health improvements and increases in consumption. So there is a lot of evidence pointing to the fact that these programs do increase consumption and purchasing of fruits and vegetables. We also hope that at the end of this randomized control trial that we're doing, we'll also see a lot more evidence around that as well. But I would say overall, I think there's been a lot of, at least more recently, a lot of research done pointing to that.
And I also want to add, and DC Greens is the DC implementer of the fruit and vegetable prescription program that we work together with Wholesome Wave on. And while that is a program that's run a bit differently, there's really strong evidence coming from the health clinics. So the way that program works is basically doctors are writing prescriptions for fresh fruits and vegetables that patients can then take to farmers markets and redeem for free to them to basically increase their consumption of fruits and vegetables. And then the doctors are tracking health metrics over the course of the program. And so both Wholesome Wave and then also in DC, we've got really strong evidence about how that is improving body mass index, hemoglobin levels, and just for patient retention at people going to see their doctors. And I in DC, I didn't get to it, but there is some funding also coming from the Department of Health for the fruit and vegetable prescription program, and I know that's happening in other places as well, where municipalities are coming to additionally fund these really targeted health-based interventions that are sending people to farmers markets.
We are out of time right now, so I want to invite everybody to send in questions, and what we'll do is compile these and actually write out the responses to folks and send them out to the group so everybody can benefit from the questions, because there's still some really good ones out there. Again, I'm sorry to the person whose question I deleted, and I want to thank Leah, Lauren, and Amy for participating today. It was great to have you guys. Chrissy, do you have any final words you want to add?
Yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning, and again, I also thank you so much, you ladies. You did a fantastic job. And I'd just like to mention, again, this platform, the Coffee Talk, is supposed to set the stage for further engagement. So this was the learning, and Amy's going to lead a conference call on September 14th at 11 a.m. to better understand the regional barriers to SNAP implementation. And then Amy plans to catalog those barriers with the purpose of determining a means for addressing the challenges. And her goal is to develop an advocacy platform. So we will follow up with the group, with the registrants via email. Reminder that you also have the handouts and the handout section of the control panel. And then also wanted to share with you, if you are interested in being a resource expert for a coffee talk, please contact me. We'd be glad to set one up to help you reach a broader audience. And here's a list of some of our upcoming webinars and upcoming coffee talks. If you want to find out more, you can visit the Chesapeake Food Shed Network at our website, chesapeakefoodshed.net. And with that, we will sign off and appreciate your attendance. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.